Welcome back to the channel, you guys. It's your girl, Wicked Raider, coming in with the early morning video. Actually, it has been a little second. A lot of gameplay has been taking place, of course, a lot of movements, especially on my free-to-play accounts. But I've been trying to be extremely strategic just based on the number of events and tournaments that have been coming our way. I wanted to ask you guys, I'm just logging in actually this morning to kind of collect and start running multi-battles, of course. When you are looking at your free-to-play accounts, for all of my guys that are edging toward level 40, 50, and 60 at this point, because some of you guys have really been pushing it on your 2023 accounts. When you are preparing to go into areas like Doom Tower, when you're ready to actually elevate yourself in Clan Boss, and when you really start focusing on faction wars, how has your strategy changed? Now, even with my pay to play accounts, this is one of those areas I've made a lot of progress in. But I've noticed with my free to play, I pull some really good champions, but there are still some factions, for example, where I may only have one champion. And I've seen so many players avoid faction wars for this very reason. Now, at first, I didn't pay attention to the details in the middle. Beating the stage, getting that first star was always the initial accomplishment. But I have noticed having 5 champions isn't my issue, even on my more advanced accounts. My other issue that's coming up, let me hide these right quick. My other issue that has been popping up, trying to get 3 stars across the board, is having 5 champions with no losses. This becomes a pretty daunting task. And I'm going to run a couple of battles as we just kind of think about it and go through. In the areas, in those more specialized areas, with faction wars, for example, you get to a point with your account, the number of champions that you are supporting is pretty straightforward. But as you're moving up and your enemies are going from a level 10 to a level 120 to a level almost 200, you'll notice that some of the champions you've been running in faction wars don't have the reach. They're not at the level where they're able to keep up and stay alive. Now, if you have a good support champion, this is where they come into play. Every faction is going to have support champions. Of course, when you're thinking about just your common and uncommon levels, those we pull all the time, you don't want to sleep on a champion you could possibly be running. Guys, if you haven't done that so far, we are 2 months into the new year, then you are doing awesome. I've had several instances where the champion that I was using as food turned out to be the champion that I needed for a particular challenge. Several. Never thought about it, built the champion out just because, ended up running them, and boom. I was in a conversation last night and going back and forth with a couple of players online. And so many people talked about, for example, how they had Rhonda, they got her, they vaulted her, they were going to come back to her, and then nothing. Forgot all about her, was running through different levels, started to struggle, and finally realized, why don't I pull her out and just build her? And it absolutely changed their approach. And that's how each of these champions are. Each one is coming with something a little bit different. For example, with Archemage, who I'm running right now, level 38. When I pull this guy, I got really excited. And if you haven't worked with him before, he's one of those champions that honestly, he can definitely make a difference based on where you are. So let's look at Alchemage really, really quickly. For Avir, guys, a bomb champion is one that you're not going to run across too often. There are several champions that have this skill, and it took me a while to kind of figure out what exactly the skill entailed. Now, for free to play, you're going to notice the gear issue is still going to be a problem. So currently, I do have him in a regeneration set, and I also have him in a life set. Are they perfect sets? The answer is absolutely not. I know that I can run a couple of areas and acquire better gear. So that's going to be a goal. But I'm almost 4-star across the board. And looking at his total stats, of course, there are going to be some areas I want to improve in. So looking at HP, we're only at 15,000. Attack is coming in at 600. His speed, I've only gotten up to 110. And this is going to be the big one. Speed and crit rate. Guys, crit rate is only 18%. And you know we're always pushing for 100. But for all of my people that are free to play and working through, and it's like, how do they get these amazing stats? Well, everything counts. When you unlock blessings, that's going to be important. I haven't dived deeply into empowerment. It's one of those things, if I find what I need for a particular champion, I'll go for it, but it's not like first and foremost on my mind. Faction Guardians is going to be another area that can make a difference. This is another area I'm reserving for late gameplay for me. Even with my pay to play account where I'm level 64, 63, 64, somewhere in there, I haven't really gotten into the Faction Guardian area. Now, masteries is a focus. This takes time. Depending on which champions you start with, if you're running Minotaur's Labyrinth, applying those masteries to each individual champion is going to take time and persistence. Once you're at a certain point within campaign, you're able to beat brutal. You know, you're finally getting to nightmare. That's where a lot of people, as they're kind of forging through brutal, really focus on masteries. Nightmare will absolutely make you pause in your game. Guys, campaign becomes a beast at the nightmare level. And if you haven't gotten there yet, or if you're just opening those gates up, you're going to notice that the level of play jumps extensively. But the other good thing about it, as you're hunting and trying to decide who to master, you're automatically going to fall in love with certain champions. The other thing you want to think about is you're going to have to or be forced to build different teams based on very specific and niche needs. So it pushes your gameplay just for that reason in particular. Classic Arena is one. This is an area that's not usually my focus, but I allow it to come. I enjoy Arena. It's an area that has a huge focus, especially during tournament time, but it's not as though I'm pushing myself. I want to be, Platinum Arena. I want to be, it's not that big of a deal for me. But this will also help me push myself with my great haul. 2023 players, new players, even veteran players, don't forget to push in your great haul. So many areas of the game, you will hear people say that one, but it is huge. It is going to be important. The other thing is with those other artifacts, when we're looking at accessories on my free to play current accounts are a little hard to come by. A lot of these were only winning during Clan v Clan, or a lot of them, even when I'm running dungeons, I'm not getting higher quality accessories. And so I'm automatically just selling those and moving forward. I don't want to necessarily put silver into those flat stat accessories because that can push you to a whole new level. But when it comes to Alchemage, he's one of those for a support champion that is a rare champion that you will want to hold on to if you pull him. As you're looking at every faction, you're going to notice that some factions have more support champions than others. And also for some factions, their level of support is not what you're thinking about. That person that you're working with is not necessarily a reviver. It is a deal changer when you finally pull your first reviver. So on his skill set in particular, Flask of Vitriol, he attacks one enemy and has a 30% chance of placing a 5% poison debuff for 2 turns. And this is a champion I've talked about before on this particular account. Now, the Flask of Vitriol is one of those, it doesn't take a lot of books. He is a rare champion. I have not pulled a lot of dupes for this champion. I've started booking him just because I know I'm going to keep him and likely 6-star this champion because of not only the faction that he's in, because I'm telling you, I love my dwarves. I have so many favorites in that category, but I know that a lot of them do not have some of the skills I'm looking for. Now, Corroding Catalyst. This one makes a difference, especially if you can get it to a 3-turn cooldown. Attacks all enemies and has a 50% chance of placing a 25% decreased attack debuff for 2 turns. Also places a 15% decreased speed debuff for 1 turn on targets under poison debuffs. Now, go back to the first skill. Remember, there's a 5% chance of placing a poison debuff. You can increase this chance by an additional 15%. So you can get this up to 20%. Are there champions that will do it better? The answer is yes, but twofold. Number one, particular faction is going to be important when you're focusing on faction wars. But number two, when you're in Doom Tower, depending on where you are and the type of champions you pulled, these rare champions become important because you have those secret rooms where you can only use rare champions. I can tell you this about this account as well. We're coming to a point, if you look, I have 7 champions that are level 50. I've got to sacrifice. I've got to figure out who is going to be the champion I want to push forward. Or do I want to fall all the way back, build all of my bottom champions to level 5 to sacrifice them instead of losing some of my more preferred champions? That's where the game comes into play. I've done it both ways, and we can talk about it both ways as well. Now, on this third skill, Vitalizing Potions fills the turn meters of all allies by 15%. 15% is a good start, but be on the lookout for champions that will fill the turn meter by 20, 25, and 30%. And he also heals all allies by 15% of this champion's max HP. So you can place the skill on a 4-turn cooldown. But for my newer players, I want you guys to pay attention to this. Notice how the first skill and the second skill are complementary. He's a champion that has a good sneak ability with decreased attack and decreased speed. If you place him on a team, for example, with Rhonda, and she is speed focused, if you place him on a team with Saurus, for example, because both of his attacks are attack all enemies every single time, you are most definitely going to see the difference in his effectiveness. So this is a champion that without the blessing, without even being mastered out, there are some differences. Now, looking across the board, 16 books will be required in order to bring our champion to a fully empowered stage. Not horrible, a little deeper than I would like. It'd be nice to be 12 books. But in the reviews, something else I noticed, you're going to notice for a rare champion in most areas, I wouldn't use him in arena, wouldn't think about him in certain dungeons, but across the board, this is a pretty solid champion. Now, you got to recommended artifacts. If you are just starting out, some of these sets, default recommendations are a good place to start because they're going to be using those pieces, especially that can be acquired from campaign, that you can easily get and use. And I'm noticing down here, you also have player recommendations, which is currently hidden, but that would be nice as well. For him, I've gone in with just what I had available at the time. And as you can see, even scrolling through, guys, the gear on this account, I have not run a ton of dungeons. What I have been doing for this account in particular is I've really been focusing on just running campaign. I was doing that to build up my upper group and to push as far forward as possible. So as he is running faction wars and as I acquire more dwarves, I'm looking for champions like Fleisha. I'm looking for champions like Tundra, of course. I have them on other accounts, but on this one, I have very much so been pulling the common, uncommon level of dwarves, not the ones that I necessarily want to invest in. I will have to pick some of those champions based on their attack ability. Is there a possibility that their buffs can be overlapped on different enemies to increase our chances of keeping my team alive and also ensuring that this champion is able to move forward? If you're running a solo champion when you're just trying to push through and make any kind of progress with faction wars, the biggest issue is resilience. Can they take multiple hits and still wait their turn? There are a lot of ways for you to give them extra turns based on gear, for example. So paying attention to your stats, you want to go for more percentage building than flat stats. But in the beginning, guys, of course, flat stats is going to be the name of the game. It's what you have. Be careful with the amount of silver that you're also investing in certain artifacts, because those will be changed out based on where you are. Now, we're going to be fine here. At least we should be. I always push my champions as well to see how far they can go alone. And then I will run every level in Faction Wars multiple times anyway. It's going to probably take me a while to get a team of 5 dwarves that is able to get the job done. This will definitely be one of my harder areas. It took about 1:33 on its own. If I had to guess, I would assume that this is probably stage 3 is probably the highest stage this champion can run in the current gear on its own. On its account, I have not started masteries. I have been a lot more conservative with that when compared to other accounts that I have. I normally will run my top probably 8 champions in rotation, 10 champions in rotation. I'll create 2 teams and run them constantly through Minotaur's Labyrinth. I have not done that in particular for this account. And you can see the difference on this particular level. It's not that he can't keep up, but he'll be defeated because of the number of turns that he's having to endure. So I'm going to go back, and then I'm going to run him for the remainder of my keys. I love the multi-battle feature, just being able to set it and let them go. I love being able to end the battle in different ways. Like these recent updates will, the last, 2, 3, 4 patches ago, kind of updates have been really, really helpful. If you are avoiding certain areas of faction wars, make a note. And whenever you pull a champion, even if it's a common or an uncommon one, go ahead and gear them up with gear that's already elevated, so you're not using any additional silver. As you are changing out different champions and you're going to be removing that gear, keep it over to the side. Even if you're only running, stage 1 and 2, it's still nice to get those materials, in your possession for the forge later on. So don't want to make this one a long one, just kind of want to jump in. I know that Faction Wars and, Doom Tower Arena are those areas we sometimes get a little shaky in. Definitely want to look at a few more specific areas and team builds as we go. And so we'll put that on the list. I hope you guys are having a great day setting your account up for some true motion, since we'll have a little time before our next CVC. And as always, guys, thank you so much. If you've made it this far, be sure to subscribe. If there's something in particular you want to see, let me know. I'll post these videos, and happy gaming.